Hi, I'm Naomi May, freelance fashion editor, and we're here with the SATCoL podcast, The Sustainable Conversation, and we are delighted to be joined by Rebekah Roy, sustainable fashion stylist, and sustainable fashion influencer Besma Whayeb. Besma and Rebekah, welcome to the Sustainable Conversation. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Of course. I am really curious to know, I know you've both got really interesting backgrounds, and I'm really curious to know what your journeys were to your light bulb moments of becoming really interested in sustainability.
So for me, this was back in university. I took a business and French degree and I lived in Paris for a year, which I felt very fortunate to do. And as soon as I got out there, I experienced massive culture shock, both in that I speak terrible French, don't tell anyone, but I also realised that the French have a very different way of eating and cooking. So while I was out in Paris, I became very aware of the food culture and that they will eat a full meal for lunch rather than just have, a meal deal at their desk. And it made me realise that I should be eating slightly better, but also the importance of eating fresh food and seasonal food. And so I started looking at French cooking and where my food comes from. And that then spiralled into where my fashion comes from, where my beauty comes from, where everything comes from. And from there, I've built out into a hopefully better way of approaching my wardrobe, my home, my food, and my lifestyle.
That's really interesting, kind of thinking about the provenance of things, because actually that plays into everything that we consume, like you said. And what about you, Rebekah? What was your journey to your light bulb moment?
For me, it's interesting because it's also kind of food related. I remember being in high school, like so many decades ago, and seeing this food chart, and it had all this grain, rows and rows and rows of grain, and then a cow at the bottom. And I was thinking, oh my God, the cow eats all that grain? We could feed so many people with that. And at that moment in high school, I stopped drinking milk. And then a group of my friends at school also became vegan, and we started just buying vintage clothes and secondhand. And it wasn't because we were trying to be sustainable. We kind of liked it. And I think it really started just in a really organic way. And then as decades go on, it really changed into something a very conscious decision.
And how does this kind of play into your work of styling? How do you kind of incorporate sustainability and conscious practices into your work?
Like 10 years ago, I felt like a renegade stylist. I felt like I was always trying to sneak vintage and secondhand things into my shoots, and then the editor would get the credits, and then there'd be, a secondhand shop where I've got the outfit from, and then I'd get an email back going, did this dress come from that shop? And I would be, yes, isn't it fantastic that we're doing this and you're supporting it? So I didn't give anyone a chance to say that this was not a good thing. And then I found the same one with bands that I was working with. I remember there was one band that I was told to have this 70s brief, but they don't like any vintage or secondhand. And I was like, I'm just going to fulfill what they've asked, but then I'm going to bring all this, secondhand clothing. And the band went all for the secondhand clothing because it was the most authentic, it was the most interesting, the most unique. And so I found that I really used to do that, but in a sort of a sneaky way. And now everyone's embracing it. Now it's cool. It's really exciting. So it's really sort of moved full circle. So that's always how it's been part of my fashion. But then there's also shows that I'm doing where I've taken all the shoes from one show to the next show to the next show, and everyone's actually really happy and feels proud actually that it is secondhand. And I think that's a whole new thing that's happened where people are saying, oh, this is fantastic that we're reusing these pieces.
Because it's nice to have something that's one of a kind, that nobody else has, that's completely unique. And speaking of secondhand shopping, we're not gatekeeping any information here. So what are our secrets? Where are we going? Where are we finding the best pieces?
Ooh. That's a big question. So I live in Brighton, and I've actually created a map for myself of my favourite places to go, both secondhand curated vintage stores and charity shops. But I will say I love going into a charity shop and finding a unique piece, an item that I might have been searching for, or something that has just popped up and I think this is perfect for my wardrobe, and being able to then take that to the till, take it home, have that for myself. When it comes to navigating charity shops, I think that that is the best approach, going in with a rough idea of what you might like to add into your wardrobe, but not complete solid ideas. You know, you don't want to just say, I want this exact jumper that's a V-neck and it's going to be, you know, heavy knit. Go in with an idea, rough, and see what the universe provides in each shop. There's so much to choose from, so many eras and so many different styles. So being able to be a bit more flexible with your approach really helps. And then my main tip for charity shopping is to go in and have a look at how things are ordered. So it may be ordered by size, it might be ordered by colour scheme. There may even be a rail of vintage, true vintage, or luxury fashion. Knowing where you want to go in the shop makes it a lot less overwhelming and easier to navigate and find pieces. But I just dedicate a lot of hours to going and having a look, and I love it.
And what about you, Rebecca? What are your secrets?
I think my secrets are often shopping in my friend's wardrobe, your grandmother's wardrobe. But for secondhand shopping, I think one of the best secrets is get a tape measure. Know your body. Measure your own waist and feel like proud of your size. Don't feel that your size inhibits you in any way. So kind of embrace your body, embrace your shape. Take a tape measure when you go. You know, measure the jeans, measure whatever you're looking at, because it's not always done in a size, it's done often in colors, and you're more likely to find things, especially when you're going somewhere that has a lot of stock. It'll save you a lot of time trying things on. And I do that a lot for when I'm, you know, shopping for clients and shopping for shows and things. So I definitely keep an open mind when I'm going to places for myself, thinking, oh, would I like a dress, or what will just, you know, fall into my lap so beautifully. But I often go with a really specific idea in mind because I'm shopping for a show or for a shoot. So I'm like, I need this in a size 16, a blue denim dress. And ultimately, it's there because most places have such a huge selection. There's so much availability of secondhand clothes.
And I've also found that tailoring is a pretty easy way of, if you've got an idea of an amazing pair of trousers, for example, you can get them and then have them tailored so they are the perfect size. That's my little tip. What are some of your favourite kind of conscious, sustainable things that you do as part of your everyday routine that you just love, that bring you joy?
So I really enjoy trying to make my life more sustainable, but also more luxurious. In the mornings, I would like to have a skincare routine with skincare that's cruelty-free and using natural ingredients. And then going into my wardrobe and having a look at what I can pair together, secondhand and ethically made clothing. And then from there, it is, you know, if I get to treat myself and go and get a coffee in a reusable cup, always nice. Being able to take a walk out in nature as well. I live by the sea, so it's really lovely to be able to kind of ground myself with that and see that the impact I'm having is less than what it might normally be. But yeah, being able to choose these better options, even if it's finding a restaurant to take a friend to and seeing if they can provide vegan options, plant-based options, seasonal food. It's nice to see sustainability as something to look for and enjoy rather than something that we have to do and are, you know, made to do. Do it in a way where it feels fun and then it never feels like a chore.
Well, that's really lovely. I was sort of thinking about what are sort of those daily practices. Almost everything in my home is secondhand. All the furniture, even my dog, secondhand dog. So yeah, I rehomed her. So yeah, so it was sort of that whole. So it becomes like the whole practice of everything sort of you do. But I think the things that I really love doing, and you sort of mentioned it, and it's some of the simple. It's really simple. It's actually, I like that I have, you know, a sustainable coffee cup and that I can go and get coffee. And I used to live in Paris when I was young. So the act of coffee is it's still such a decadent thing for me, and knowing that it's come from somewhere else. And so I'll go out in the mornings, go for a walk in East London, go get a coffee, continue walking my dog, walk back home. And there's just something so lovely just about those everyday practices that kind of set your life kind of in motion.
And finding joy in the small things. I always think that's key. And you spoke there about making things enjoyable so that it doesn't become a chore. How do we kind of go about getting people to engage in the conversation without feeling like they're being preached to or we know more than them and we're speaking down to them? How do we just invite people into this conversation?
I find with the content that I create, I like to show by doing and make behaviours that are more sustainable just feel very normal, and I think that translates really well. So instead of saying everyone needs to stop using plastic bags and take a tote bag to the supermarket, just show that you're using a tote bag and wear a tote bag with your outfit. And then guess what? It feels very normal, it feels very natural, and it may be something that would inspire somebody else to go and do the same thing. Being able to lead by example is a real opportunity, and it's something that I feel very grateful for, and being able to share my knowledge and practices with other people. But it's also impossible to say do everything. I think it's important to recognise we all have different ways of living and different boundaries to being able to access sustainability. So whatever it is that you're doing in your lifestyle, in your work, finding small changes that can make a cumulative effect are better than trying to do something huge and sustainable and it becomes a headache. That in itself isn't sustainable. The tips that I tend to give out when I'm talking to somebody who is getting into this space for the first time are making changes that take just one effort, one way of kind of engaging with it, and then the effort continues. So, for example, changing where you have your money in your bank account, take it to a bank that isn't investing in fossil fuels. That change takes one day or even just one click online, and then you're making a cumulative effort every single day without even having to think about it. The same goes with the wardrobe. If you're going out shopping on the weekends for new clothes, maybe take a walk down the street where there are charity shops and you can have a look in those instead of walking into a big shopping mall where there are big stores that are selling clothes firsthand. It's one small change, but that becomes a normalised behaviour, and then it becomes something that you'll do regularly and can enjoy. So, yeah.
And what is, you touched on a few there, but what is one thing that you would say to somebody who wants to make different choices and more conscious choices, but maybe feels a little bit overwhelmed by how much noise there can be around this subject? What's one thing that they can do today?
I think it's shopping habits. I think there's some things that we're really used to doing. We're used to going to a charity shop and buying a book or a vase. And for some people, clothing is still, for us it's really normalized, but for a lot of people it's still a bit taboo somehow, or they feel not successful or something. There's a lot of emotion that's around it. So I figure if we're willing to go and buy a book or we're willing to go and buy a vase, then just sort of take the next step. You know, maybe you have an event coming up in the summer, you have a wedding, you know, that you're going to, and you know it's a few weeks or months away. Maybe go to that shop and start looking around and thinking, oh, what could I wear for this to make it even more special? So it's just making small adjustments to that mindset, but it's actually just being a little bit brave and comfortable with that and embracing it and knowing you're doing something good also for you that will make you feel good.
I think to add to that, being able to take a moment to look at how you like to live your life and ground yourself in the habits that you have and see if you can change just one of those habits. So whether it's seeing what packaging you're throwing away every week in your kitchen and then deciding to choose an item to go and buy from the zero waste shop, or looking at the clothes that you might buy on a monthly basis and seeing if you can find those secondhand. There's a lot of ways to access it, but I think personalising it and doing it in a way which feels comfortable to you and authentic to you means it will be a habit that you can change for a long time, rather than just do that one off and then don't do it ever again.
I think they're really nice tips. And Rebekah, styling catwalk shows is always very fun and fast-paced. Can you tell me a little bit about how you got involved with styling the Salvation Army's collaboration with the Winchester School of Arts?
Oh, that was a fantastic collaboration. So all the students were using, you know, up and recycled pieces, and they made amazing, really statement pieces that were so perfect for the catwalk. So I was doing a show called Source, which is a trade show about sustainability. And the Salvation Army was part of that. And it really sort of made the show and just showed everybody what you can really do with fashion, how you can take it to the next level, and how just important these partnerships are really.
And when you start working with a designer on styling a catwalk show, how do you go about implementing sustainable practices?
I think right from the beginning, and right now I think so many young designers, they're really interested in sustainability. It's just part of the thought process for a whole new generation. I think it's just how people are thinking. And I know so many young designers who are, you know, looking at what fabrics are already out there, how can we use them, how can we, you know, find dead stock, how can we find so many different pieces, take them apart, and re-put them together. I think it's just sort of the new thought process that's happening.
It's almost becoming muscle memory. And I know you've got a little bit of experience with Sustainable Fashion Weeks, haven't you?
I do. Last year I put on the first ever Sustainable Fashion Week in Brighton alongside a whole collective of different sustainable fashion creatives, fashion designers, and also a local university and their students. I didn't work the catwalks and the runways. That is an incredible job and something that I let the professionals take care of. But seeing the students and models come down the runway wearing secondhand, upcycled, recycled and new designs was just beautiful. It was an event in Brighton that took place at Brighton Dome. We had it for 2 days and we had over 2,500 people turn up. Tickets were free, so it was just getting people to come and see what fashion could look like, and that it was local and it was sustainable and it really brought people together. It was such a joy to do that. We're doing it again this year, and we're also hoping to put more events on throughout the year, and I think that's such a good way of being able to show not just what sustainable fashion could look like, but also where it's going. I hope that this is where the fashion industry does take things. As you're saying, with designers now, I think they are thinking more circular. They're thinking about not just how they can design a new collection, but also what that collection looks like at the end of its life and whether they can take it back and make it into something new. So being able to be a part of that and just amplify it and connect our local community to it was a real joy.
And I think the key word there is community. That's the key to all of this, isn't it? It's creating a community so that we know we're all part of something.
We are. I think I was talking to Rebekah before. I started where I was looking for community online and building an ethical influencers network, doing the work that I do with my audience. It's a real joy, as I've said. Joy seems to be the theme for today. But I now feel like I've gone full circle and I'm influencing in real life, where I'm able to work with the local community and to see people in person engage with fashion in a way that is more sustainable, that is something that they enjoy and they can connect with, but it doesn't feel too daunting. So whether it is just telling somebody, you know, you can go into this local charity shop and see what you can find, or invite them to a runway and being able to see what future fashion looks like, it's all about getting people involved and doing it in a way which feels meaningful and that they can belong to this movement. We're all in it together.
Well, that's it. Fashion should be joyous. And so if you're going to buy something and you buy something secondhand, it's so circular and it becomes joyous for so many more people.
And I think one of the really lovely things about obviously secondhand shopping is the fact that you are fostering a sense of community with whether it be with ethical influencers or with friends who are, you know, like-minded about living more consciously, but also it's deeper than that, isn't it?
It's so much deeper. We can buy something secondhand that makes us feel good, but we don't realize the knock-on effect that it has within the charity itself and how the charity is helping people. So it has a much greater impact than us just buying something secondhand to make ourselves feel good.
Yeah, I tend to think of secondhand fashion as a really easy way to support a more ethical fashion industry, and there's always that big social piece that comes with supporting charity shops and the work that charities do. I almost feel like it's making a donation and in return you get a piece of clothing with it, which is such a lovely way to kind of navigate your own wardrobe and build a more sustainable wardrobe, but one that is also building a better and brighter future for so many other communities that are being served by these charities. So it's nice all round.
I think that's a nice way of framing it. You're making a donation and you get a piece of clothing in return.
Yeah,
I like
that's lovely.
I like that. And also it just plays into the fact that this entire subject of sustainability isn't just about, like we said, fostering a community around the different things that we can change in our lives, but it's also about being conscious of, like, where your food comes from, where your money's going, and and that's another aspect of it, isn't it? Which is, you know, supported by secondhand shopping. You go to a charity shop, you support a charity.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. It makes a huge difference.
Besma and Rebekah, thank you so much for joining us on the Sustainable Conversation today. It's been a pleasure having both of you here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.